Hello, hello, hello. And I'm waiting for a few people to start coming on, but I'm going to start this recording because I'll have this again on Facebook and on YouTube. But this is our Spreading Happiness series. Hey, Stacy Francis. So listen, Fume's at home helping a friend. You know, that's one of the ways of being happy. Hey, Lotta. So you guys, so here's the thing. This is the fifth precept. We're trying to do one every day. Wa alaikum salam, brother. So this is the way to happiness. This is a little booklet. It's a common sense moral guide with 21 precepts. 21 things that you can do to be happier, and you can help others be happier. Olga, Claudia, nice to see you guys. So we're going to do the fifth precept tonight, but first, because I really want everybody to understand how to use this book, the reason that you give this book to other people, there's all kinds, you can get your own cover. This is awesome. This is like $1 book. So why I gave you this book, your survival is important to me. And that's true because I spend a lot of time trying to help my friends around the world be happier. And the definition of happiness, well, there's a little part of the book is happiness. So the definition of happiness, one of them, is a condition or state of well-being, contentment, or pleasure. Catherine, hola. Another definition is joyful, cheerful, and untroubled existence. Now, who doesn't want more of that? The last one is happiness is the reaction to having nice things happen to one. Now, it's interesting. Hey, Barbara, hola, all the way from Spain. The interesting thing about happiness is kind of if you help other people and they get happier, hey, Artie, you actually find yourself getting happier too. It's a funny thing. So now we're going to focus today on the fifth precept, which is honor and help your parents. Now we had done, yesterday we did love and help children. This is kind of like an extension, love and help children, but also honor and help your parents. So let me read this. From a child's point of view, parents are sometimes hard to understand. Older generation, they don't know what they're talking about. There are differences between generations, but truthfully, this is no barrier. When one is weak, it is a temptation to take refuge in subterfuges and lies. It is this which builds the wall. Children can reconcile their differences with their parents. Before any shouting begins, one can at least try to talk it over quietly. If the child is frank and honest, there cannot help but be an appeal that will reach. It is often possible to attain a compromise where both sides now understand and can agree. It is not always easy to get along with others, but one should try. One cannot overlook the fact that almost always, parents are acting from a very strong desire to do what they believe to be best for the child. Children are indebted to their parents for their upbringing, if the parents did so. While some parents are so fiercely independent that they will accept no return on the obligation, it is nevertheless true that there often comes a time when it is the turn of the younger generation to care for their parents. In spite of all, one must remember that they are the only parents one has, and as such, no matter what, one should honor them and help them. The way to happiness includes being on good terms with one's parents or those who brought one up. So, I just want to tell a little story about my own life. And my mom and dad were amazing people, and I no longer have them with me. But just before my dad died, when I was 15 years old, it was an incredible experience for me because my dad was always like this amazing guy who worked 7 days a week, and hardly ever saw him except at night. And you know, we didn't have a perfect existence. We had enough money to eat. We didn't have extra things. We didn't get gobs of toys at Christmas time, but we worked, and I worked since I was 15. But one day, all my brothers and sisters got in the car and they went with my mom to my grandma's house about 30 minutes away. And I stayed behind, and my dad and I were painting the house together. So my dad always let us kids help. We always had chores. We always earned, what we got. We always knew we were getting something from our parents. We were given food and clothes and a house to live in and education, and made sure we went to school. So we weren't feeling like my dad or mom didn't make us feel indebted but they always let us help. So I always felt like I was exchanging fairly with my parents for my room and board, And one day my dad and I were painting this old house we lived in, and my mom and my brothers and sisters took off, so it was just the two of us, and I was 15, and I had a little motorcycle, and we had a big backyard, so we had a little mini track, and I would ride my little motorcycle out there, and my dad had this big Kawasaki racing motorcycle, and this is 45 years ago. So as we finished painting, and my dad said, okay, we're going to go to Grandma's house. And I was like, wow. And I thought we were going to get in his car. And he said, well, first, he goes, we're going to take the motorcycle. But first, why don't you drive my motorcycle around the track? And I'm like, now 15, I was a scrawny little kid. When I was 15 years old, I was just over 5 feet tall. So I was kind of tiny and skinny. And this big motorcycle, and I was excited. I said, okay. He said, keep it in first gear. Don't go very fast. I said, okay. And I went around, and I was going around the track a few times, and I started getting cocky. And I was like, okay, I know what I'm doing. Why doesn't he let me go in second gear? Why can't I go faster? And all of a sudden I see him, he goes like this, up in the yard. And I went, okay. So I drive up. Now, my motorcycle was an Italian motorcycle, so the brake and the gears were opposite. What this means was when I was coming up to him in first gear, I was going fast enough and I was hitting the brake with my foot, but it wasn't the brake. It was the gear shifter. So nothing happened. I went, and I pulled the front wheel brake. I didn't get hurt. I wasn't going that fast, but I crashed in front of my dad. I was so embarrassed. His brand new motorcycle. I cracked the tail light. I bent the steering wheel. I was like, at that moment, if I could have crawled into the ground and disappeared forever, I would have been happy. And my dad, who was usually kind of a loud, and if we messed up, we got spankings. It was like it was good justice. We never got yelled at if we didn't do something wrong. Trust me, we did things wrong and we got yelled at. It was great. So I'm waiting for my dad to scream and yell that I just wrecked his new motorcycle, and instead he comes over, he picks it up, puts it on the kickstand, and says, "Come here." Now I'm even more afraid because he's not yelling at me. I'm going, oh my God, there is things worse than death. And I sit down, and we sit down on the steps, and he said, "Do you know what being cool is?" I'm 15 years old. I'm going, I just crashed the motorcycle in front of my dad. How the hell would I know what being cool is? And I said, no answer. I was just like looking at him wide-eyed, total fear. And he says, being cool is knowing exactly what you're doing while you're doing it. And it made a lot of sense to me. I was like, okay. And he says, why don't you run up to the store and buy me a pack of cigarettes and think about this. So I did. I went up to the store. 15, 20 minutes later, I come back. And he says, okay. And he had the bike all fixed up, and it was sitting there. He goes, get on the bike. Use any gear you want to. So now I'm really paying attention. I wasn't cocky. I get on the bike and I'm riding, and I've been riding since I was a little kid. So I'm riding the bike and I'm going in different changing gears, and I'm testing the brakes, and I'm testing the rear brake and the front brake, and I'm learning the machine, and I'm learning to know what I'm doing while I do it. And so I cruised around a few times, and my dad said, okay, let's go to Grandma's house. So I come up and pull up, stop perfectly, put the kickstand down, don't crash anything, and we get on the back of the motorcycle. Now remember, this is 45 years ago. There were no helmet laws and stuff. My dad had a helmet, and I had a baseball helmet, believe it or not. So I'm on the back of the bike, and we're going 85 miles an hour on the highway to my grandma's house, a 30-minute ride, and I'm exhilarated. So we get to my grandma's house, and she lives on a dirt road that's about 1.5 miles long, and my dad says, take it out, here's my helmet, take it out, go as fast as you want to go. I'm like, okay. So again, the first times up and down, the first couple of miles, I'm staying safe. I'm seeing the road. I'm feeling it. It's not a real road. It's dirt. It's a dirt road. So, and I'm going faster and faster. And pretty soon I'm going 80 miles an hour. And I fly by. And all of a sudden, as I'm flying by at 80 miles an hour, I look over, and my mom is yelling at my dad. You crazy, so, and I go, ooh, I don't want my mom to kill my dad. So I slowed down, I turned around, I came up, I parked the bike perfectly, but I was in control of the motorcycle. That one thing my dad taught me. Now, unfortunately, that night my dad had an accident on the motorcycle and died. So I lost my dad. But I never lost everything he taught me in 15 years. And I never forgot the very last lesson he taught me about being cool. So, I no longer have my parents with me, but I respect other people's parents. I try to teach my kids, my boys, and luckily I have an amazing wife, so, they have good parents. And we keep trying to keep them, to learn good things about life and how to help other people. So anyway, thanks for joining me today. Hope you enjoyed the story. It totally impacted me in my life. So honor your parents. They're really good people. You guys have a great day and spread happiness wherever you go. I'll have links where you can get free digital copies of the book. You can go to Way to Happiness International and get any copy in hundreds of languages. And share some happiness. Spread some happiness around. Thanks a lot.